Hello, members. I'm going to do the shout outs at the end in another clip because I don't have my computer out here with me right now. I've had something on my mind and I'm hoping to get it off. I don't really know how to make something like great. And by that, I don't mean that I don't think the stuff I make is great. What I mean is that I don't know how to strive in particular for a greatness of which I am uniquely capable or which is uniquely recognizable even to myself. Like, I tend to make things because the idea comes into my head. And then I pretty much figure out really quickly, like, what is the most beneficial way I can realize that idea. Like, how can I realize the idea? Like, can I afford to do it? And if so, to what extent? And so I usually go through with my projects based on like what I think is a safe bet, more so than what I think is going to be like a great piece. Sometimes I have ideas that I think legitimately will be like an amazing piece, but just the amount of mental work it takes doesn't feel worth it unless there's going to be like a huge take on like a social or a financial level that I just can't guarantee. And sometimes, like, there was a time where I think I was more convinced that if you make something really great, it just will definitely get noticed. And that's just evidentially not true. Like, I've seen too much great stuff that no one checks out. And I'm not even really including too much of my own like, I've made stuff that I think is pretty great, and maybe it didn't get the recognition I thought it deserved, but that doesn't mean it went, like, unrecognized. Even if it took, like, a while. I've seen stuff that I think is, like, undeniable, and, like, nobody cares about it. And it's usually because those people just didn't know how to market the thing. And, like, marketing, a lot of it comes down to, like, knowing people, knowing structures, knowing like where you can share your stuff, or making stuff that preemptively is going to hit with a certain demographic. Whereas, like, it's a lot harder to just, whole cloth make something and then find people who are going to like it. Like, that's really difficult compared to making something you already know people are going to like, because there's already a built-in audience for it. And, when I started doing anime analytical writing as a blogger, there was no way to monetize it. I had not seen it done. I had never seen it done. So it was just something I was doing out of passion, and I very badly wanted to make it my job because I was so passionate about doing it anyways, that I was like, it would be really nice if this is something I could make money off of. But I never thought of it as great work. I never thought of it as like super meaningful, like on a spiritual level work, because I was idolizing, novels, films, TV shows, things that I grew up with that reached me, video games, things that reached me when I was a kid and inspired me to start writing in the first place. And feeling like I came up short of being able to actually make anything good in those realms is what got me into analyzing stuff and trying to figure out what does make something good, what makes something suck, what makes something, worthwhile. And I think eventually I developed the confidence to think I could make something good. And then really Kusomega, I mean, the light novel I did in a day, while kind of a meme, is also quite good. It was better than I thought it would be. And then writing Kusomega convinced me I can write something good. Even that I don't think is necessarily great, but I've written stuff since then that I do think is kind of great, but I haven't finished it. And again, a part of it is that fear of like, I'm going to commit all this time and energy to making something that I sincerely feel is great, and then I'm not going to know how to market it, or it's not going to translate to the audience, or like, I'm going to have to challenge my idea of what is even good, in the face of this thing not succeeding, which that part wouldn't be so bad. I feel like I've had to do that plenty of times, but like, up to the point where I was capable of making something really great, I feel like I had a clear image in my head of what that was and why I wanted to do it, you know? Like, I looked to really, when I became inspired that YouTube could be taken to a level of greatness was through Horseshoe Finale, through Endless Jess, and I know I'm not the only person who feels that way. In fact, Gigadonk told me she felt the exact same way, that, like, you know, seeing that series, particularly Horseshoe Finale, the Horseshoe Saga, I mean, but particularly Horseshoe Finale, was like this artistic statement that meant something and had real effort and thought put into it and felt cinematic, you know, even if it was like a one-man project that didn't have, like, it basically pushed what one person could do by themselves to the absolute limits. And it showed that that could be something like massive and artistic and feel as deep and meaningful as a great film experience or a great book or whatever. So, you know, all of which are also things Jesse is totally capable of making. But in his case, this was the medium that he wanted to express himself through to tell that story. And being as that YouTube is like my favorite medium, seeing that to me made it like instantly my goal for like a long time was I need to make something as good as Horseshoe Finale. But I didn't have a story to tell that way. You know, like that story was very unique to its circumstances, that like that he had this clear idea of what he wanted to do that would make sense best in YouTube video format. And it was blending together aspects of wrestling and TV and movies and all these different influences that he has, books. And like when I blend those influences together, I don't get the same thing, you know? And so I spent a lot of time trying to create, like, in my mind, what would be the ultimate YouTube video, you know, something that would be like on that same level of effort and care. But it never came out of a place of I already have an idea for the ultimate YouTube video. It was just like a desire to have made the ultimate, like the, you know, to have pushed myself as far as Jesse had pushed himself on that video. But there's no reason to do that, you know? And it's not like Horseshoe Finale did buy an amount of respect towards Jesse from certain people for forever. You know, it's a big part of why he has patrons who are going to support him forever. But like, it wasn't strictly speaking necessary to make that happen. But even beyond that, it was necessary for him to make it because it was emotionally what he was going through. He spent like 8 months making that thing, you know, like he couldn't not make it. He couldn't do anything else but make it. He was stuck with it. He was trapped with it. It kind of was fucking up his life for like a whole year, you know? And even if there's a lot of reward to come out of that, was it necessarily equal to the pain? I don't know, you know, and how much of that can be attributed to other things. So like, I look at that and I look at me trying to chase after it as like kind of foolhardy, you know, like me thinking that I had to make something like that to prove that I had it in me. And it's like, I'm confident at this point that I have it in me to create whatever I want to create. It's just a matter of what do I want to create and why. And if the motivation is just I'm trying to make the best YouTube video imaginable, it's usually just not. Like, who's going to agree that that's what it really is? Well, I even agree with that 5 years hence, you know? Like, I don't even agree with the thesis of most of my most popular videos, you know? Like, what is anime and what isn't? I completely disagree with the conclusion I come to in that video. Fucking how to recognize a terrible anime in just one episode, while it is a great point, like, I do think some shows just get better, you know, like, as they go, and maybe it's worth sticking out sometimes. Like, it's just, there's not enough, even the ones that are pretty nuanced in their takes, I'm like, yeah, but my take is even more nuanced now, you know? So, like, it's hard for me to even accept the idea that I could make something that I would still think was as good 5 years later as it was when I made it, you know? Like, considering that my perspective is always broadening and changing. But, like, I like the idea of making great things that, like, inspire people. But what inspires people the most is working with them very closely on what they are doing. Like, to some extent, what makes my content attractive to people is that I talk about things they already care about. And that's always been difficult for me because different people in my audience care about different things, and there's certain stuff that seems obvious, like, well, I guess if you like this, you would definitely like this other thing. But then it only goes so far, you know, especially as an anime fan. Like, broadly, nobody should be a fan of all anime. It's just not reasonable. You're not gonna like every genre of anime, you know. So the fact that I even like tried is kind of nuts. But you know, there's no like way to constantly tap into things that people definitely like unless you're working with them very closely and you really understand their taste and where they're at in their mind, you know. And so I've really been tightening my circle in more and more, where I'm super focused on my Discord, on the people who I communicate with most directly, on people who I am interested in working with long term, you know, because like, it's easier for me to commit to doing something with someone than it is for me to commit to doing something by myself when I can't convince myself that it's gonna be like great, you know. Like, if I can make something, again, if it just makes sense to make something in the moment, I do it. Like, this video is just, it's an idea I have. I know it's interesting, I know it's compelling, so it doesn't matter that it doesn't take a lot of effort for it to happen. You know, it's a rant, it's a ramble, it's something that I already know what I want to say before I say it. You know, I didn't plan every word of this. I knew the concept, but I also knew it would be easy for me to expound on because it's something that sat on my mind for a very long time. You know, like, am I trying to make something great, or am I just making things because I'm compelled to do so, you know? And I stop myself really more often than I actually make things. Like, my ideas are so frequent that most of them don't go anywhere. Most of them never even get written down, you know. Like, I'm pretty bad about remembering to write things down, and I kind of think of it like, if an idea is really worth its stuff, it'll keep coming up. Like, I've thought about making this video for probably a few days now. It's hard for me to get the times exactly right. I've been super dissociated the last few days. This is the most I've spoken in days, I think. No, not true. Yesterday I recorded half of the Thunderbolts review, and tonight I'm probably going to record the other half, but I had to get this out first because part of what I'm struggling with that video is that it's a rambling, kind of incoherent, like, here's every thought I have about this movie in the order that they come out of my mouth, you know. And like, all of it's interesting, but it's not a great video. It's not a video that I think will hold up in posterity as like this amazing review of Thunderbolts. It's really just like, hey, if you are a fan of me, you're interested in my thoughts, and you're interested in this movie, this will be interesting to you. But it won't really be interesting to anybody who's not in those circumstances, and it probably won't be interesting a year from now, you know? But like, at the same time, I can't not make that video because the movie is sitting on my consciousness and I have to get all those thoughts out. And yes, I could write a script and make an edited video and like make a whole thing out of it. But again, if I did all that and I spent like 2 days on it, and which isn't a long time, but if it only gets a couple thousand views or it doesn't make any money or whatever, like, and knowing me, it'd end up being way more work than I think it would be. I'll start writing the script and then it'll be fucking 17 pages long and it's 2 hours or something, and I'll be like, why did I think I could do? So, you know, I know the level that's appropriate to rise to for like what's gonna be good for me. What's going to be good for me is not going to be making the best video I possibly can. It's going to be making a video that's like, that makes the point, you know, and is interesting for the people who I know will like it because they like the movie and they like me. It's not like trying to make new fans. That's why it's going to be a members only video, you know. But like, it just struck me that like, I can't remember the last time. No, I can. The last time I really put a ton of effort into making something I thought was really great was the Perfect Blue video. And that is a perfect example of something that, like, it just didn't perform any better than something I would have spent 2 hours on, you know? And, like, I'm kind of over being upset with that fact. Like, I understand why that is the case, you know? Like, it's an old movie. It's not relevant right now. It's not even like having a rescreening in theaters at the time that it got released. It might have been at the time it was written, but that was like 6 months beforehand, you know, like there was no reason for a Perfect Blue video that's 80 minutes long on a brand new channel to suddenly blow up. Other than that, it's really good. But even figuring out how good it is requires you to watch a lot of it, you know? Like, not to say that it's not a good script from the beginning, just that you're not going to get why it's a good analysis until you've watched the whole thing. So that's a lot to ask. And over time, I think it will get a lot more views than it has. But again, it's like, for me in the short term, I'm broke, you know, and desperate, and like, and have been. And I've always felt that way, even when I wasn't truly. I felt that way because that's how I kind of grew up, and the mentality I grew up in is that of being broke and desperate. And the more I break down my life, the more I feel like being broke isn't as desperate as I thought it was. You know, like, I really was so afraid of the status of being broke throughout my life that now that I'm here, I don't feel as afraid of it. And so I feel like I have a lot more space to navigate how to be unbroke, you know? And again, like in my head, I thought, you make a god-tier piece of content and then money rains down on you. And it's like, that's just not how it works. You build a structure through which you can make money off of your art, and then you make money off of your art, you know? It doesn't matter what the art is. It matters that you have a structure for it, which usually requires there to be a specific audience, and that specific audience doesn't necessarily care about how good the art is to you. They care about how good the art is to them. And if they've never seen Perfect Blue, an 80-minute video about Perfect Blue doesn't matter. If you can't convince them to watch it, it doesn't matter. Now, how I could have marketed that video and it would have made more sense is to spend a month talking about the fact that I was making it, and to do group watches of the movie, to make a whole campaign for people to rewatch Perfect Blue in preparation for my video, and then debuted the video, you know, knowing that there were people ready to see it. I didn't do all that. I should have. I tend to move in desperation. And again, I'm really trying to slow that down and just like let myself sit in my brokenness for a bit and just, you know, think about what I'm really doing and what I really want and how I really am going to make things right for myself. And for the most part, making the best possible content doesn't feel like it's going to help me with any of that. Making content that is for the people that it's for is what will help me with that. And also helping people to make their own stuff that they are legitimately passionate about. You know, I don't think it's wrong to want to make something great. You just have to have an actual idea that's great. You know, Gigadog has shared with me a script that I'm like, this is great. Like, this is a great idea. It's inspired. I understand where it's coming from. I think it will resonate with people. I don't know if we can make it as good as it conceptually could be, but I think if we make it as good as we can, it will be good, you know? Whereas if I just go into something like, I'm gonna make the best thing I possibly can, and like the idea just springs from, well, what would that be? You know, that's how you end up with How They Marketed, which I made one episode of and crashed and failed because it really was bore out of like, what is the coolest idea I can think of for an anime video series? And while it is a very cool idea, it is inspired, it was not doable. It just straight up wasn't doable for me. It was above my ability to actually conceptualize, and that's why I couldn't do it. You know, I barely got through an episode and then had to scrap the project because I was losing too much money trying to figure it out. So again, greatness, it's cool. It's cool to make something great, but it shouldn't be, in my mind, your like priority. You shouldn't be thinking, I need to make like an amazing piece. I need to make a masterpiece. I need to cement my name in history, because like, it won't be that way. Like, even if you really love your work, there are plenty of people out there who think that their work is a masterpiece and nobody agrees, you know, or a small community agrees, or even a large community agrees. but not that large, you know, like, and there are plenty of people who think that something is the greatest thing ever that you think is complete trash. So just always keep that in mind. You know, your desire to strive for greatness needs to be personal. It needs to be that you want to do something great to prove to yourself that you can do that, and that you'll be satisfied with the result even if nobody else cares. In my case, I don't feel the need to prove that to myself. I am confident I can make a great thing. I'm not confident that making a great thing will do great things for me. Unless, you know, unless all the stars align on an idea and I'm like, this is the one I have to do, you know? But right now, I'm a lot more focused on helping other people to realize their ideas that I think are good, because it makes me feel fulfilled if I can be a part of making something great, even if I don't have, you know, something I really feel that passionately about making great myself. All right, let's go to the part where I say all your names. Okay, ignore that Boris is still playing in the background. We have on the Do Witchcraft tier, Queen Slut, Aqua Bunny, Taper Clip, Gassy Hull, Duncan 264, Anime Professor, Zen Huxtable, He Wan, Zerakiel, Gigadonk, The Anime Guru, Rigvox67, Towel Cat, Brody, Z Cypher, and Denakori. And on the sponsor good tier, we have Night Night, Asapi, ASE Presents, and Gary Always. Thank you for watching and for being members. I hope you'll stay members well into the future. That Thunderbolts review will probably come out in like a day or 2 or 3, or I don't know. I haven't finished recording it.